Well, it's that time of the year again already. How's it happened this quickly? I mean, that said, I had imagined having this video out a little bit earlier. Passage of time is a cruel mistress. I always intend to do more top lists. I think I said it last year as well. But this is, of course, Hamman Reviews Top 10 of 2022. I think, as with every time I've done one of these, a few of the figures on this list are figures that I haven't actually reviewed on the channel yet, but somehow they've made it through to my favorites. I don't know. It's just the way it is. Legacy Armada Starscream. I would have quite liked to be able to put this figure higher on the list because I am a massive Unicron Trilogy fan, but I guess with just how heavy the shoulders sit and those guns, they could have been a little bit more dynamic to blend in with the rest of him. For him to have sat higher on the list, I would have needed the wing blade gimmick to be actually integrated to him. That would have pushed him way up the chart. Scourge. I know this might be surprising to people who watch, semi-regularly, but I really didn't care for Laser Optimus. I don't know what it was, it really didn't do what I needed it to do for that character, but for some reason it works for me as Scourge. I don't know, I don't need it to be as posable. The color scheme and it being a different guy, I don't know. This is just cooler. Somehow this is better than the original and all it is a repaint. Because it's a different character, and so, at least for me, psychologically, I like this more. Now, I know for sure that this next pick is going to be a controversial one. Just before I grab it, I know objectively that this is not a good toy. It's an incredibly flawed toy. But Hiss Tank Megatron. So I appreciate that he's incredibly cumbersome. I can appreciate the articulation is bad. He feels kind of hollow and weird. There's a lot of backpack. His gun is mounted on his hand for some strange reason. It feels like the G.I. Joe team doing Transformers rather than the Transformers team doing G.I. Joe. But the interplayability, right? You dropped your gun, but it's fine because you're riding in a gun. The interplayability of that is just so wonderfully 80s and something that I feel like should have happened so long ago that this guy had to make my list. Bumblebee doesn't. That sucks. But this was a good entrance into this concept. Do y'all remember Human Alliance? Human Alliance was great. I love that. And it just felt like something that always should have been happening given that they turn into vehicles. I guess we kind of do with Headmasters, but yeah. I like it. The next entry is another repaint / partial. A little bit of a dark horse, potentially, I don't know. But it's just really good to have a G1 styled, actual, awesome Alpha Trion. They nailed the sculpt, they nailed the deco, using Scourge to become Alpha Trion. And I'm okay with it, especially in this instance. It's worked incredibly well, and it feels right. You know what I mean? This is a vibe position, just like before. My top 10 is all about the feels. And this is just a really cool one to finally have. I would have loved to have been able to put Studio Series 86 Leader Class Sludge higher on my list. But there's just a couple of things that held him back. Chiefly, that QC. That wasn't good, right? That helped no one. You gotta be able to stand up for yourself. Deco and sculpt also just, to me, feel the tiniest bit flat. I know that this is cartoon toy accurate, but you know what? Him not cracking the top 5 to me is more a testament to how good the top 5 are as opposed to points against him. It's been a good year. It's been a year with a Leader Class G1 Dinobot. Racing into the next position, Override. I know there's a lot of people that, don't super rate the Unicron trilogy, but I feel like if you're somewhere between, 34 and 38, the Unicron trilogy hit you right at that kind of disposable income point. Still kind of a kid, kind of had money, like Transformers, all these new Transformers. At least that's what it was for me. So to get updated versions of one of the, cooler characters from Cybertron, I'm all about it. This was such a good update. It had all the modern articulation, engineering, and proportions that you'd want at the sacrifice of a lot of the gimmicks, but I'm all about robot mode function over gimmickry. I really hope that this is indicative of a lot more of what's to come. I would be happy if they were like, alright, we've redone G1 in its entirety, we're kind of making our way through Beast Wars, let's just do the Unicron trilogy again. Do it. Make a new show. It was a cool show. Use the same CAD models or whatever, and have them in space, so you never have to move them again. I don't mind. I can get on board with that again. Then, we've got the king of the road, Motor Master. I know right now he's decked out as Menasor and he's got, 3 out of the 4 bots that make him complete on him. But he gets such a high spot because not only is this cool as a combiner and right? There's no chance of him falling apart or coming unpegged. It's not very often that a figure that has this much kind of heavy lifting to do in terms of combined mode, vehicle mode, robot mode, manages to be so stellar in all of those modes. They really went above and beyond for this one. I feel like this is what Commander Class is for. I just think he's really clever and cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing, if we get any other combiners in this fashion. You know what, let's do Road Caesar. It's been a while since Road Caesar's had a go. Now, just before we get into the top 3, I thought I'd hit you with a few honourable mentions, as is the custom and convention with this kind of format. So, firstly, Jyaxis. This figure is really top shelf, top banana. It almost looks like it could be a red figure. Admittedly, his alt mode is kind of like, a space lump, but the articulation, posability, sculpt, the G2 representation, everything about Jyaxis screams winner. But it was such a sick year for new bots that somehow he just didn't quite make it. But I love him nonetheless. Then we've got Studio Series Ironhide. This was a figure that I was really excited about, and then I got it, and he was kind of almost so on point that I didn't end up reviewing him because I didn't find that I had anything to say, there's only so many ways you can be like, good bot, good robot, nice robot, fantastic robot, look at the robot, good robot, turns into a van, looks like it was in the movie, heroic nonsense, good bot. But bram! And then lastly, we've got Inferno. This figure is exceptional. The only thing that stopped it from cracking the top 10 for me was his little hands, his little Lego Man hands, I find vaguely irritating. And then this is real nitpicky because, again, it's been an exceptional year. But that chest just sits too flat for me. I needed that TV show kind of crest to really finish it off. Because I find the chest, compared to how dynamic the head is, it just sits really flat. I'm not about it. Next up, we have a figure that I know was a little bit contentious amongst the fandom in terms of, build, quality, are you getting what you paid for? Personally, I think he was a little bit overpriced, but he still gets the 3rd spot for the year. I guess this is 2 guys, or 1 guy with a backpack and cool shoes. I've always loved the character. I think it's so cool that we're getting some mainline representation for him, and I think that this kind of slightly obscure but beloved character is the perfect use of HasLab. The only reason he didn't kind of end up higher is because mine had a couple of QC issues, and I know that people were plagued by QC issues in general. And then he's just a little bit flims. For this kind of price point, I really did need a little bit more articulation out of the arms. That said, he's still phenomenal, glad I got him, and I love him. Next up, we got this year's big boy, Cybertron Metroplex. I can remember when the pictures for this guy first sort of came out and, the initial rumors that this is who he was getting, I was a little bit like, do we need him? Metroplex is already pretty big, it's already pretty posable, but then the opportunity came up to actually pick him up on sale, and I am so glad that I did, because as well as being, a behemoth, he's just such an exceptional toy. The proportions, the posability, the tolerances, where last year's arc kind of left a little bit of a bad taste, I think they've well and truly made up with it for how phenomenal Metroplex is. This is just a good toy. If you don't have it, try and get it, cause he good. He real good. Plus, you could almost use this as like a home security system. So then finally, in the #1 position for 2022, we have Tarantulas. This figure just blew me away with how perfectly they were able to capture his on-screen presence. Like the textures, the different plastics used, the colors, everything about this figure screams premium. The sculpt is crisp, the articulation is on point, and you can't look at it without hearing his like Tarantulas energy. It inspired a little trip into the Hamverse, and that's largely what it's all about. If I like get a figure and I sit and have, a muck about with it, and ideas just start percolating about how I would, weave them into a story for the setting of, that series, to me that's the makings of a good figure. When it, activates and captures the imagination. So that's it, party people. What did we think? How does your sort of top 10 align with mine? Did you have similars? Did I omit anyone that you think is a glaring omission and was worthy of the top 10? Is there anyone who made that list that you're like, Ham, what you playing at, fool? Why you gotta do us like that? I wanna know. Thank you to everyone who's been watching throughout the year and the past couple of years. I'm having a good time doing this. I do quite like the YouTubes. So thank you for watching. If you're just stumbling across the channel for the first time now, click the clicks because I like it. It makes me feel good about myself when people enjoy my content. So until the next one, hit me up in the comments below. Let's get nerdy with it, and I'll see you then.